How to use the MinMax tuning dashboard in eTurn's TrackStock on the web. Navigate to the dashboard by going to the 9 dot, mousing down to dashboard and clicking on MinMax tuning dashboard. As you can see in this particular stockroom, we have 231 items. Total inventory value is $105,000. Based on the usage over the last 90 days, in other words, the quantity pulled over the last 90 days, we only needed $13,000 of inventory, saving $91,000. So we can remove $91,000 of inventory from this particular stockroom. That's an 87% savings. And if you save that $91,000 out of inventory, your annual carrying cost is also reduced by $18,000 each and every year. So let's see how this works. Down here in the left panel, you have a choice of using pulls or orders. If you don't have pulls, you can use orders. Pulls are always best because they're more granular. They happen more frequently. And you choose how many days in the past we look back to calculate an average daily usage. So the system would go back 90 days for each item, add up the quantity pulled for each item, divide it by 90 to get that average daily usage. Then we ask the question, how many days, if you order today, how many days does it take your supplier to deliver that order on average? In this particular example, we're saying 5 days. And we set that number of days of average usage times 5 is the minimum. That's the minimum we want to have on hand before we reorder. And we're going to set the maximum at twice the minimum. These can be changed, that's why they're in these boxes, but we're going to start here. The annual carrying cost as a percent of inventory value is 20. We give you a little infographic up here so you can understand the costs that go into the annual carrying costs. Variable from cost of money, taxes and insurance. Fixed costs is the warehouse, keeping it warm, keeping it dry, and then other costs, the staff, pilferage, obsolescence, etc. All of those happen just with the inventory sitting there, and the industry has a range of 25 to 55% of the inventory value is the annual carrying cost of your inventory. So you say, well, wait a minute, that's an incredible savings. Am I really have that much, too much inventory? Let's look at, instead of 90 days, let's go look at your most recent 45 days. And we click Save. It goes and recalculates usage over the last 45 days. And what it now says is you only needed $3,000 of material to handle all of your usage over the last 45 days, letting you take $100,000 out of inventory and saving you now 20 grand a year. 20% is very conservative annual carrying cost. We can make this closer to the industry low of 25%, and it'll go in and tell you what that annual cash savings is from a 25%. So it's now $25,000. You can go the other way and say, well, let me look at 180 days of usage, half a year. Got to be different. I'm sure it is. Then save it, recalc it, and of the $105,000 of inventory, you now need $15,000, letting you save 90 and 22 each and every year. So this is the high-level analytics screen, interactive analytics screen. Let's go look at a little bit of detail here. Scroll down a little bit and we show these graphs. This one on the left is the percent each item is of total inventory value, showing you the top 10 and lumping everything else. So the top 10 are 25% of inventory value. Everything else is the 74. This is the minimum graph. This is the maximum graph. So what this is saying is that there are 23% of your items, or 43 items, that are within 20% of the optimized minimum. 20%. But there are 139 items that are greater than 75% of the way from the optimized minimum. So this is not very close. Likewise, over here in maximum, there are 15.8% or 27 items that are within 20% of your optimized maximum, and the rest, the 144, are greater than 75% away from the optimized maximum. You can set these 20 and 75 up here in the settings wheel, but these are the ones that we start you with. And so you say, okay, eTurns, TrackStock, I love the software, I love what it's doing. I can't believe I can really save $90,000 from inventory. That's a big jump to change my min-maxes that much. Let me get closer to it. So you can say, okay, so you grab this slider and move it, let's just say halfway roughly. So I landed on 55%. The max goes up 55 because it's got to be greater, at least greater than the minimum. And now you see you've got 52 items in the green here and 44 in the green there. And that's what these numbers are. So with these trial min-maxes, the inventory that you needed was 32,000, saving you 72. So instead of going all the way down from 105 to 15, you can go from 105 to 32 gradually. And then you can update the min-maxes from this dashboard, I'll show you this in a minute, to these new parameters that are half the way to the optimized mins and maxes. And so you say, okay, after we do that, then let's go, let's say up in here, the 80%. It recalcs and it shows you that now you only needed 23,000, saving 81. And you continue on up, and if you go all the way from your current min-maxes to the optimized min-maxes, these numbers end up being the same. So it's a 15.5, 15.5. So that's how you can gradually approach what the optimized min-maxes are to make sure your inventory on hand matches your usage. The next panel down is where the item stats are. Some interesting statistics. Click this drop down and it shows you that there's 231 items. There's a couple of them in 2 bins, so there's 8 items that are in multiple locations. Nothing stocked out. Everything has a cost. There's 8.5 turns, 8.25 turns for this particular set of inventory. This month there have been 12 stockouts, and year to date 286. Not particularly good, but not horrible. There are 72 items of your 231. There's 72 that have not had an order in the period. And the period is this 180 days that you've set up here. So in 6 months, 72 items have not had a single order. 45 have not had a pull. So there's a lot of just stagnant inventory here. Now, we can close this. And now we get down to the grid of all the item detail, all the items, with a bunch of statistics. For example, we can scroll over here to the right, and this yellow is the story about the mins and maxes. So now let me go back up here and reset these numbers to get to the worst case scenario, current scenario of the current mins and maxes. So now we look up here and it shows cash saving is 89,000, 15,000 worth of inventory is all that's needed. And now let's come down here and look at the detail. And we show you that there's this first item is neither the min nor the max is close, within 75% of the calculated mins and max. A lot of detail here, but what's interesting, we slide over here to the yellow is the minimum and the orange is the maximum. So we look at this, and the current minimum is 400, the calculated is 90. That's 344% away from being optimized. Same for the next item. But if you look at the third and fourth item, you see that the current minimum is 100. We are calculating it needs to be 110 to be optimum for the usage of these 2 items. So we don't just reduce what the mins and maxes are and say, hey, so you can save this. It's all based on usage. So here's two that should be lower, two that should be higher. And same when we go over here to the maximum, these both should be lower, these both should be higher. So it absolutely depends on the individual items. Another thing you can do is over here in the narrow search, you say, look, I've got some items that need to be spares. I can't go to 0. I can't go to 1. I need to have 2 of them on hand all the time. That's fine. You can create a category called spares. I don't know if I have that category. I don't. So we'll simulate it. We'll assume that these bushings, these 16 bushings, we're going to say need to be spares. So what we can do is check all categories and take bushings out of it. And now it recalculates to tell you what can be saved without the bushings. So the total inventory now is down to 79,000. You only need 11,000 of everything else, saving you $67,000. So you can very much fine tune this to have it do the analytics on any category you want and eliminate items you don't want to include in the calculations. So the other way to look at this is, let's assume we want to just analyze connectors, these 17 connectors. What's the value of the connectors? That's $10,000 of connectors. You only needed $400, saving you $9,700. So in this way, you can fine tune your analytics on individual items as you go. Once you've set the trial mins and maxes where you might want to start, you can slide down here to the detail, and you see that there's some blue buttons in the action columns. This allows you to take this item and the item detail. You can turn this on to manual, so you can change it here, or automatic, so the software changes it after every pull or 24 hours as the usage changes. What this allows you to do is to say, you know what, slide to the mins and the maxes. I like this suggested calculated minimum of 110, and I want to get 55% closer to it. And same with the maximum here. I like those. And so you can apply the minimum, and the software go right into the item detail and change the minimum or the maximum or both by just clicking this button. Alternatively, you can select a row and do the same thing up here in the header, allowing you to save time and not have to write things down or memorize them, whatever. So you turn those on in the item detail, and then you can apply them right here in the MinMax Tuning Analytics dashboard. You can also reorder the columns with this under the settings wheel here, and you can print this out in Excel and or CSV. Very powerful analytics, and hopefully it'll help you optimize your inventory and save you a ton of money every year from reduced annual carrying costs. And that's a quick overview of how you use the MinMax Tuning dashboard in eTern's Track Stock on the web.